Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we'll be discussing how I got ripped in 90 days. So for some background information about me, I've been bodybuilding for about 8 years. I've done multiple bulk and cut cycles, but this one specific bulk and cut cycle I'm talking about occurred in 2022 from March until about beginning of June, where I started at about 200 pounds and I was over 20% body fat, and I finished in 90 days at 160 pounds, 8% body fat, and here's how I did it. And this is a video about how I got ripped 90 days, but these principles can be applied to anybody and everybody. All right, step one, I found my maintenance calories. Now, I found my maintenance calories by going to Google and searching T as in Tango DEE calculator. That's TDEE calculator. All right, you go to that website, just TDEE calculator, you enter in the information that it requests, and it gives you an approximate maintenance calories. Now, your maintenance calories are the calories you have to eat at to maintain your body weight. If you eat below your maintenance calories, you will lose weight. If you eat above your maintenance calories, you will gain weight. All right. So it's important that you know your maintenance calories so you can have a threshold and a baseline that you can have an idea as to how much weight you're losing every single week. Now, one disclaimer or one important piece of information that I will say about the calculator, it is an approximation, okay? So that means it's an estimate, and it's an estimate based on the information that you provided. So with that being said, there can be some error to it. Ultimately, it's going to require trial and error. So you're going to have to see, let's say it says your maintenance calories are 3,000 calories per day, and you eat 3,000 calories per day, but you're gaining weight. That means your maintenance is truly lower. So again, or if you're eating 3,000 calories a day and you're losing weight, that means your maintenance is truly higher, which means you need to eat more. So ultimately, it requires trial and error. I recommend eating I'd recommend, getting your maintenance and just seeing how your body reacts to it and how much weight you either lose or gain to make sure it's accurate. And I'd suggest, eating at the recommended maintenance for about 2 weeks, just seeing what happens. All right. Now, about me, I ate in a 1,000 calorie deficit daily. So my maintenance was 3,000 calories per day, but I wanted to lose about 2 pounds of fat per week because there's 3,500 calories in a pound. So there's 7,000 calories in 2 pounds. So I thought, okay, if I eat in a 1,000 calorie deficit every single day, that means I'll lose 2 pounds of fat per week. And that's what I did. So I ate 2,000 calories every single day for about 90 days. All right, step two, intermittent fasting. All right, intermittent fasting is when you only eat in an allotted windows of time. Okay, there's a lot of health benefits for intermittent fasting, but the purpose of intermittent fasting for people like bodybuilders or for people who are trying to lose weight is to A, control your hunger, and B, only eat within an allotted window of time to prevent you from like overeating or snacking or gaining excess weight. Okay, it just makes the diet more doable when you only give yourself an allotted window of time. Okay, so me, for example, I wake up anywhere from 4 to 5 a.m. every single day, and I don't have my first meal until 12 p.m. and I have my last meal at 8 p.m. Well, having my first meal at 12 p.m., it teaches my body, okay, I'm not going to eat until 12 p.m., so I'm not going to get hungry until 12 p.m. Eventually you might be starving, or eventually you might be really hungry at first, especially if you're not used to waiting, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to eat. But eventually your body will get used to it, all right? So you don't have to do 16 hours fast, 8-hour eat window. You can do anything you want. You can do 20 hours fast, 4-hour eat window, 22-hour fast, 2-hour eat window, 12-hour fast, 12-hour eat window, just whatever works for you. But you want to make sure that you're only eating within that window. And again, there's a lot of health benefits to this, but it's primarily for controlling your hunger and limiting the amount of calories you consume and preventing overeating. Okay. Step three, I consumed highly satiating foods. And by highly satiating foods, I mean foods that were extremely high in protein. I didn't really eat that many carbs, and I really don't think you need that many carbs, especially when you're consuming tons of protein. Hell, I mean, there were days when I was getting, 265 grams of protein on a, 2,000 calories, and I could have gotten more if I didn't consume, 2 Red Bulls every day. But I highly recommend eating high protein foods. The benefit of high protein foods are that they're satiating and they're going to prevent muscle loss, and they will also undercut, which is important because you don't want to lose the muscle you worked very hard to build. And then it's also important because it's going to allow you to not only maintain strength but even build strength. Because a lot of people think whenever you get lean, whenever you go on a diet, you get weaker. That is not true. I promise I'm one of the strongest guys in any gym I walk into, and I'm also pretty lean. And I've been on multiple bulk and cut cycles, and I've been super shredded. I've been super lean, and I've been able to maintain effectively all of my strength on a cut. Okay, and I attribute that to high protein diet. So some high protein foods are egg whites, eggs, ground turkey, ground beef. I recommend 93.7 and up. Chicken breast, fish. For fish, you got tuna, tilapia, cod, salmon, flounder, all that good stuff. And now I also recommend consuming about a cup or so of vegetables, which are protein, not only because are they extremely rich in micronutrients, but because they're even more satiating. All right. So what I do is I'll go to the grocery store, I'll buy a ton of bags of vegetables, and I'll just put them all in one big pot, and I'll boil them all, and then I'll put them in a large Tupperware of just assorted veggies, and I'll just add like a cup or two with my high protein, and so I'll be super satiated even on a diet. Now, some example vegetables you can eat. You can eat whatever you want, but I'd recommend, broccoli, cauliflower, corn, asparagus, green beans, peas, um, Brussels sprouts, all that good stuff. Just vegetables, anything green, okay? Spinach. All right, step 4, I did fasted cardio. Now, the purpose of doing fasted cardio is that whenever you're doing cardio in a fasted state, you're burning more calories. I don't know the science behind it, but it's just understood in the exercise community that whenever you do fasted cardio, you're burning more calories. So what I would do is I would run 3 miles before eating every day. So I would run 3 miles before eating at 12 p.m. And again, so you know, I burn about 140 calories per mile running as a 180-pound bodybuilder. Whereas, of course, I'm going to burn more. I don't know exactly how much more, but I'm going to burn more in a fasted state. So I highly recommend fasted cardio. I did that every single day. Of course, you don't have to run. A lot of people can't run, and a lot of people don't like running. But you burn the same amount of calories running as you do walking per mile. So like if I burn 140 calories running per mile, well, I also burn 140 calories walking per mile. The only difference is you can run a lot faster than you walk, but it's more, but running's a more efficient way of burning fat. Except, I've been running for 15 years, and a lot of people haven't been running for that long. So I can stop running for a long time and pick it back up and run and not get injured. So if you can't run, just do any form of cardio you want. You got stair stepper, you got the bike, you got swimming, which is great. It doesn't have to be running, just any form of fasted cardio. Okay. Now, step 5, as far as the lifting regimen goes, I lifted about 6 days a week. And I actually maintained my intensity. I maintained my intensity, however, I progress slower. So since I'm in a cut, when I would do progressive overload, and for those of you who don't know, progressive overload is just when you progress on a lift, each I want to say each session, but it's all relative to you. It's just when you improve. It's when you progress on a lift in some capacity over some period of time. It doesn't have to be every session. It just depends on where you are in your strength level. But for me, I would increase. I was lifting heavy on this cut specifically. I would increase the reps by 1 every single week. I would start with 3 and I would end at 8. And once I hit three of the 4x8, I'd increase the weight by 5 pounds. But if I'm doing 100-pound dumbbells, over 6 weeks, I'll go to 105-pound dumbbells, but I'm on a cut, so I'm still getting strength, but I'm going slower to prevent injury and to make sure I can actually do it and to build fundamental strength that lasts. All right. So maintain intensity, but that might require you to progress slower. All right. Now, the routine I did PPL heavy, which is push pull legs, and PPL high volume. Push pull legs, the push day is any day in which you utilize exercises that require push muscles, so chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull days are any exercise that utilizes pull muscles, so your back and biceps. Your back and biceps, and by back I mean your lats and traps. And your legs are your legs, so your hamstrings, quads, both hips, your glutes, your calves. And then I would do that heavy. I would do about 3 to 8 reps. And the next day would be PPL volume, and I would just do like similar or different exercises, but I do high volume, focus on drop sets, supersets, just really focus on hypertrophy and getting a good pump and just um, focusing more on bodybuilding as opposed to like getting stronger. All right, so high volume stuff. Now I didn't write this down, but I will mention it. I would encourage a lot of you guys not to do a deficit larger than 1,000 calories per day unless you're above like 23% body fat. In my observation, in myself and in others, you can run a larger deficit only if your body fat is particularly high. But once you get to about below 23, 22%, you want to stick to about a 1,000 calorie deficit. And that's because once you get to about 23, 22%, and you run a deficit that is larger than 1,000 calories per day, you encounter the risk of losing muscle. And if you just bulk for a long time, you really do not want to lose muscle because that's just annoying. Like the purpose of a cut is to, show the muscle that you built, um, during your bulk. Another thing, you will lose strength on a cut, but where the body fat percentage at which you lose strength is entirely dependent on genetics. I will say universally, most people start to notice strength gain losses at about 12% body fat. So the second you start losing strength on a cut, I would encourage you guys. The second you start losing strength on a cut, assuming you're doing everything perfectly, and I mean perfectly, and when I say doing everything perfectly, I'm referring to eating adequate protein, getting adequate sleep, and drinking tons of water. Because I know doing something like getting tons of water might seem trivial, but the literature shows that when you're dehydrated only slightly, your strength can decrease by up to 10%. Well, 10% might not sound like a lot, but when you're on a cut and your max bench press is 300 pounds, but you're slightly dehydrated and your strength decreases by 10%, your max bench goes from 300 to 270. Okay, so being hydrated is very important. So once you've determined that you're doing everything correctly, that's when you want to start decreasing your caloric deficit. Okay, so let's say you're running a caloric deficit of 1,000 calories per day at 12% body fat, and you're doing everything perfectly, everything you're supposed to do outside of the gym, but you keep losing strength. And I'm not just talking about losing strength one day, but if you're losing strength across the board for about a week on every lift, despite doing everything entirely correctly, that's when you want to start lowering your deficit. So you can go from like something like 1,000 to like 500. Okay, and then if you eat at 500 calories and things are going good, but you start losing strength, you want to decrease your deficit even more. Okay, but again, the body fat percentage at which you lose muscle and strength is dependent on genetics. Again, most people it's 12%. For me, it's about 8%. It just depends, really. It could be up to 15%, just depending on your genetics. And that is all I have for you guys today. Um, this is how I got ripped in 90 days. If anyone's interested, I offer one-on-one coaching, how to get shredded, how to bodybuild, how to get jacked, how to bodybuild and run long distances concurrently. The link for coaching is in the bio. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.